I am Dolores, 34 years old. One night, my father declared, "Your room must go to your brother's kids." When I whispered, "And where will I go?" he answered coldly, "You no longer have a home." But then, I placed a heavy file on the table, and silence fell. The shocking truth? This house was registered in my name. After years of sacrifice and silence, I finally revealed my strength. They could no longer erase me. If you want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your thoughts below. I am Dolores, 34 years old, and I never imagined my own family would try to erase me from the very house I built with my sweat and silence. It was a quiet evening, the kind that should have felt safe, but instead my father's words sliced through the air like a blade. "Daughter, your room must go to your brother's kids." My chest tightened, the warmth of dinner turning to ash in my throat. I whispered, "And where will I go?" The room fell colder when he replied, "You no longer have a home." My trembling hands reached for a hidden file, the weight of my secret pressing heavy against my ribs. With a steady breath, I said, "Interesting, because this house is registered in my name." The silence after my words was deafening, like thunder that refuses to roll but hangs above your head, waiting to crush you. My father's eyes narrowed, my brother's fork froze midair, and my mother clutched her shawl tighter, as though fabric could shield her from the truth unraveling at the table. For years, they had spoken to me like I was temporary, a placeholder until my brother's life required more space, more comfort, more sacrifice. But tonight, their entitlement collided with a reality they had never considered, that I was not the weak daughter they thought could be discarded. My father's voice cracked through the tension, lower, more dangerous. "What are you saying, Dolores?" I slid the file across the table slowly, my heartbeat echoing in my ears, and whispered, "I'm saying this house has never been yours to give away." My brother's laugh came first, sharp and hollow, a desperate attempt to mask his unease. "She's bluffing," he sneered, shoving his chair back with a scrape that cut through the heavy air. My mother leaned forward, her eyes darting between the file and my face, torn between disbelief and fear. My father didn't move, his hand resting on the table like stone, his gaze fixed on me as though he could burn holes through my skin. I wanted to tremble, to shrink back into silence like I had countless times before, but instead, I pushed the file closer. "Go ahead," I said, my voice steadier than my shaking legs. "Read the deed. Every page bears my name. Every payment came from my account. Every brick of this home belongs to me." For the first time, the house felt different, not a prison of expectations, but a fortress I had secretly built around myself. My father finally moved, his fingers dragging the file open as if it weighed more than stone. The sound of shuffling papers filled the dining room, each page turned like a drumbeat of truth echoing through generations of silence. My brother leaned over his shoulder, his smirk fading with every line his eyes scanned. My mother whispered my name, not with love, but with a fear that chilled me deeper than the night outside. They had never thought to question where the money came from, who signed the checks, or why the lights never flickered even when my father's death swallowed everything else. I had carried the burden of this house for years, paying bills in secret, patching cracks while they boasted about my brother's future. Now, as my father's hand began to tremble on the final page, the truth towered over them like a shadow they could not escape. My brother slammed his fist against the table, rattling the cutlery and breaking the fragile silence. "This is a trick," he shouted, his voice raw with panic. "You forged this, didn't you?" My father's lips pressed into a thin line, his pride warring with the evidence before him. My mother reached for my hand, but I pulled away, her touch burning like betrayal. All my life, they had spoken of sacrifice as if it were a duty carved into my skin, a duty that only I was expected to fulfill. But as I looked into their stunned faces, I realized they had never once imagined the possibility of my survival, let alone my strength. "No," I said, locking eyes with my brother. "The only forgery here is the love you all pretended to have for me. This house is mine, and tonight so is my freedom." The room erupted. My brother stood so abruptly his chair crashed to the floor, his face flushed with fury. "You think a few papers make you stronger than us?" he spat, his voice dripping with venom. My father's silence was louder than his rage. He stared at me with the weight of a man who realized control was slipping through his hands. My mother muttered prayers under her breath, her eyes wet with tears, not for me, but for the collapse of the family order she worshipped. I rose from my chair slowly, deliberately, my knees shaking yet my voice unwavering. "These papers are not just ink," I said, holding the file against my chest like armor. "They are years of sacrifice, of nights spent working while you slept, of days spent fighting battles you never even saw." The truth hung heavy in the air, unmovable, undeniable. For once, they were the ones left powerless. My brother lunged forward, his hand snatching at the file, but I pulled it back just in time, clutching it to my chest. His eyes burned with the desperation of a man who had lost something he thought was his birthright. "You'll regret this, Dolores," he hissed, his voice low and trembling. My father finally stood, his towering frame casting a long shadow over the table. For a heartbeat, I braced myself for his wrath, but instead, he turned his fury on my brother. "Sit down," he thundered, his voice cracking with a force that silenced even my mother's prayers. My brother froze, shock flickering across his face. It was the first time in years I had seen my father choose control over chaos, yet the lines on his face revealed the truth. This wasn't about love for me, but fear of the undeniable power I now held. I held my breath, waiting for someone to speak, but the silence stretched until it felt like the walls themselves were listening. My mother finally broke it, her voice trembling yet pleading. "Dolores, think about the children. Your brother's family has nowhere to go." Her words struck me like knives, each syllable cutting into the scars of years spent as the invisible daughter, the one expected to bend and break so others could thrive. I shook my head slowly, refusing to let her guilt drown me again. "And what about me, Mother?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "Did you ever once think about where I would go, what I would eat, how I would survive when you gave everything to him?" Her lips parted, but no answer came, only the quiet shame of a truth she could no longer deny. My brother scoffed, folding his arms across his chest as if to shield himself from the humiliation pressing in around him. "You act like some hero," he sneered, "but you'll end up alone, Dolores. No family, no support, just empty walls to keep you company." His words echoed, heavy with the cruelty of someone who had always believed I was nothing without them. I took a step closer, my voice steady though my heart raced. "Alone," I whispered. "I've been alone my entire life while living under this roof. But these walls aren't empty. They hold every hour I worked, every tear I hid, every sacrifice I made while you wasted what little you were given." For the first time, his smirk faltered, and in the flicker of his eyes, I saw fear. Fear that I was no longer the sister he could control. The weight of my words lingered like smoke after fire, suffocating the room. My father sank back into his chair, shoulders heavy as though a lifetime of authority had just crumbled beneath him. My mother dabbed her eyes with the edge of her shawl, whispering my name again, but softer this time, almost fragile. I felt the tension shift, the balance of power tilting for the first time in my life. I stood taller, the file still clutched against me like proof of my worth, my survival. "This house," I declared, my voice echoing off the walls, "isn't just brick and cement. It is a reminder that I will no longer be erased." My father looked at me then, truly looked, and for the first time I saw something in his eyes that unsettled me. Not anger, not pride, but a dawning realization that his daughter was a stranger he could no longer control. The air felt heavier with every passing second, like a storm building just beyond the windows. My brother paced the room, his fists clenching and unclenching, the frustration of defeat boiling beneath his skin. My mother's lips moved silently, her prayers now frantic whispers that even she no longer seemed to believe. My father, usually the anchor of their entitlement, stared blankly at the table, his authority shattered. I drew in a deep breath, my resolve sharpening like a blade. You wanted to throw me out, I said, letting the words drip with the weight of years I had swallowed. But tonight, I'm the one choosing who stays in this house. My brother froze mid-step, his eyes widening, and for the first time, fear replaced arrogance. He realized the truth. The power he had taken for granted all his life now rested entirely in my hands. The storm finally broke inside me, not with rage, but with clarity. I laid the file flat on the table, my hand firm against its cover, as if sealing the years of silence within it. My brother's face twisted with disbelief. My mother's tears flowed freely, and my father looked smaller than I had ever seen him. This house is not a gift, not a prize for someone else's mistakes, I said, my voice calm but unshakable. It is my sanctuary, built from resilience, paid for with sacrifice, and protected by truth. You tried to erase me, but instead you revealed who I've become. For a moment, no one moved, and the only sound was the ticking clock on the wall. I stepped back, my breath steady, my spirit unbroken. And to everyone listening, never let them silence you. Never let them steal what you've earned. Because survival is revenge, and justice is strength. Like, subscribe, and share if you've ever had to fight for your place in a world that tried to push you out.